Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and we are reading Full Moon by Jim Butcher. So this, of course, is the second book in the Dresden Files series. We read the first book, Stormfront, as our book of the month for August. Hopefully you've been following along. If not, it is never too late. There are links down in the description below where you can pick up these books, but really hope you will join us if you haven't already, because these are super enjoyable. Before I get into my thoughts on Full Moon, I just want to remind everybody that on Mondays we do our Book of the Month discussions, and on Wednesdays we do a weekly read, and I discuss that book on Wednesdays. So hopefully you're following along. If not, definitely do so, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and give this video a like while you're at it. But let's go ahead and get into my thoughts on Full Moon. So this week we read chapters 7 through 13, and we're really kind of getting into the action of the story at this point. Last week was more kind of just setting the foundation, reintroducing us to some characters, introducing us to new characters, everything like that. So this week we're really kind of getting into it. And it starts off with chapter 7. He is working with Bob the Skull, who is one of my favorite characters. I wouldn't want to work with Bob, but I enjoy the interaction between him and Harry. And he's learning about werewolves. We know, that's the premise of this book, is werewolves. And so basically there's, I think, 4 different types of werewolves. And the first one is your more classic werewolf and people who can turn into werewolves. But that's like their specialty. Like that's the only magic they know, and they can turn into wolves or they can turn into other animals. So it's just kind of their choice, So, he was talking about, how the Native Americans would turn into buffalo and things like that. And then the next wolf is somebody turns them into a wolf and they can't turn back. So they still kind of have their humanity, but they slowly lose that as they live as a wolf longer and longer. They lose that humanity and they become like a true wolf. And then you have your lycanthropes, which are the ones that don't physically transform, but mentally become like the wolf, and physically, as far as like strength and speed and healing ability, become like the wolf, but they don't turn into a wolf. But they do lose a little bit of their humanity when they're in that state. And then you have the Loup-Garou, which are ones that have been cursed and turn on the full moon. And they have no control. Like, they are fully wolf when they're turned, and they have no control whatsoever. So that's kind of introducing us to the key players. And I'm pretty sure we're dealing with everything, other than like the second one where somebody turns them into the wolf and they can't turn back. But I know for sure we're dealing with the last 2. And so from there, Harry takes his report to Murphy, and he's unable to go in, and he has an interaction with the FBI agent again. And again, you're still kind of left wondering what's the deal with this FBI agent. And so I'm really curious, like, just to find out what's going on. I wonder if this FBI agent is going to be like in the series as a regular or not. Like, that was definitely something, because I kind of like him. And I think, he definitely is somebody that could be. So it'll be interesting to see. But eventually, that whole interaction takes place, and then he gets directed by the FBI. They're kind of, unofficially hiring Harry on to check out the street wolves. Obviously, they're not going to pay Harry or anything like that. They're just directing him in that direction. And he uses the young FBI agent that I talked about before. And so, so he gets directed to this gang of street wolves, which are lycanthropes. And basically, Harry makes a huge mess of it. So now he has to deal with that. Like, he has them on his tail, pun intended. And so, he gets out of that situation, which you'll have to read. It was definitely very enjoyable, very tense, and like, what's gonna happen? And so anyway, he gets out of that situation, and he has sent Bob out to find more information on, werewolves and the killings and such like that. And he ends up bringing in a demon. And so, actually, I need to backtrack. I skipped a part. So after he escapes from the street wolves, he goes back to his office, and Johnny Marcone's there. So he has a whole interaction with Johnny Marcone, and I think that was my favorite part of the set of chapters was his interaction with Johnny Marcone. I know there was more exciting things that happened, but Harry kind of got the upper hand with Johnny this time. So I really enjoyed that whole interaction, and he kind of throws Johnny's trying to make a deal with him and basically, buy his loyalty. And Harry kind of throws that back in his face, but he's still able to get the information Johnny has, which is a key bit of information. And Johnny's, like, you made an enemy of me, but I think Johnny's kind of gonna wait because Johnny also needs him, because he's at risk. So, but basically, Johnny went from being kind of neutral with Harry, and now Harry has another enemy. So that's something he's going to have to deal with later on too, is Johnny Marcone again. So that's a whole huge mess. And like I said, I really enjoyed that interaction. So hopefully if you haven't read it yet, you will. And if you have, let me know what your thoughts were on that interaction. And so from there, he sent Bob out to find more information on, the information he got from Johnny. And then he ends up summoning a demon because Bob couldn't get any information. And apparently demons know all or most things that are going on, but you kind of have to make a deal. And he definitely underestimates the demon, which is like, what you're dealing with. So I'm really surprised that he underestimated the demon. But the demon gives us key information that I think is going to come into play, not necessarily in this book, but in the series as a whole. So I'm really, want to hold on to the information that demon gave us and keep it in the back of our minds, because I think it will come into play as we continue to read the series, if not in this book. And so that's, something, that I'm really excited to explore more. But basically, he underestimates the demon, and the demon gets angry because, again, he doesn't take the bait. Harry's, smarter than people think. I know he muddles things a lot, but, and then from there, he has an address, and he gets a call from Murphy to go to that address because there's been another murder. And so I'm not going to give any spoilers in this one, other than now we're dealing with the Loop Guru. But Harry is tied to the victim again. So I don't want to give spoilers. You have to read the book. But yeah, he's tied to the victim again, and it's a huge mess. And so basically now he's on the wrong side of the cops again. Murphy was just barely kind of starting to open back up to him, and now he's on her bad side. And she actually ends up arresting him and everything like that. But he manages to escape with the help from a friend who isn't necessarily somebody you would have expected to help him. And she has already made an appearance in the first set of chapters. So that's kind of where we're left off at. And I'm really excited to see where it goes from here, to see who's doing the killing. Like, obviously the Loop Guru did this one killing, but he's not responsible for all the killings because he only turns on the full moon. And some of these killings happened outside of that window. And so it's going to be interesting to see who's responsible for that, how he kind of gets out of this mess with the police now, and how he handles having these street wolves and Johnny Marcone after him again. But let me know what your favorite part of this set of chapters was. Like I said, mine was definitely the interaction with Johnny Marcone, followed quickly by the demon interaction. I thought that was a fun one too. But let me know your thoughts. Remember, this week we are going to be reading chapters 14 through 20. So definitely read those, and then join me next Saturday. And yeah, happy reading, everyone. Bye.